So next up, we have a panel on NFT growth marketing masterclass. And we have Charlie Apthorp, Anastasia Petrova, Tim Haldorsson, and Jake Ryan. Round of applause. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Good morning. I hope you enjoyed the experience of NFT.NYC so far. My name is Anastasia, and I'm very excited about this discussion. And today on this panel, we are going to discuss the principles of NFT and Web3 marketing. And let's dive right into it and start with a round of introductions.
So hi everyone, my name is Tim, and I'm the CEO of Lunar Strategy. We are an NFT and crypto marketing agency that have worked with about 150 projects since 2019. And yeah, super happy to be here today to discuss marketing and growth.
Hi, I'm Charlie Apthorp, and I'm a co-founder at Athene Labs, which is probably, I think, the second biggest UK Web3 specialized marketing agency. A little bit younger than Luna, we're a year old, and yeah, really excited to be here and talk with you all.
My name is Anastasia, and I'm co-founder of MetaSouls, which is an educational platform for women to onboard them into Web3 space and other skills of the future, like, for example, how to use AI on a daily basis. We do it via offline and online experiences. Online, we have educational materials, and offline, we do different events. So, for example, last year, we had a big NFT exhibition in the Netherlands. I have corporate experience, used to work for big brands before, like Heineken, Adidas, on the brand marketing side, and made my smooth transition to Web3 at some point. So yeah, let's dive into the first question, which is quite interesting, I believe. What is the difference between Web2 and Web3 marketing, even if there is a difference? What do you think?
So the biggest difference is that in, let's say, traditional marketing, usually the goal is to get a lead, or it's to make a sale, or it's to take an action. But in crypto, if you use the same approach, what will happen after you have sold an NFT is that people will sell the NFT again, and then the project will go down. So the main challenge in Web3 marketing, and the main difference, is that you need to make sure that the buyer actually stays in the community and wants to hold the NFT for the long term, because you can see so many examples of projects just going under because they did not think of the long term, and they were just after the actual sell, and then afterwards it kind of collapsed the whole project because they were not focusing on the long term. So I think that's the biggest difference, that Web3 is more building a community and more long-term thinking, instead of Web2, which is more to make a sale or to make a short-term purchase.
Right. Charlie?
Yeah, I really agree with what you're saying there, Tim. I think a great way to think about this is by looking at the audience. So a lot of people, when I speak to them, I say I do Web3 marketing, and they either think I'm like a trader, or I like shill weird crypto tokens, or quite specifically, they often think I do Web2 to Web3. So Web2 to Web3 is a really, really big segment, but that is more looking at traditional Web2 audiences, right? So those are still Web3 marketers, but what they're doing is, like we heard from the NFT cred guys, looking at, let's say, a fashion brand in the example they gave, and trying to reactivate those fashion audiences using NFTs. That's more like traditional Web2 fashion marketing, just using a new technology. I think the way I define Web3 marketing is focusing specifically at Web3 audiences, Web3 consumers who want to buy Web3 products and interact in Web3 environments, right? So inevitably, they have like quite different consumer behavior patterns to traditional Web2 audiences. Largely male, exist in specific spaces online, largely on Twitter, read specific crypto publications, right? So that is a very specific audience profile. I think then maybe we can talk a little bit about sort of the tooling differences as well. Like we were just talking about this before, but when I spoke at NFT London last year, I said NFT audiences won't give you their email address. Like we were looking at the data, and we were trying to capture email addresses in sort of sign-ups off Twitter. And no one would sign up. They'd all drop off if we asked for their email address. You know, a year later, sitting here, we're seeing a much higher propensity of people to give their email addresses. We were just running quite a big mint a couple of weeks ago using a tool called Allow List, and that was built around email collection and gating the whitelist to mint through an email. So in just a year, we've seen the use of email like radically change in Web3. So I think that's a sign, basically, that the differences we saw a year ago and previous to that are slowly starting to like reduce. Like a lot more of the typical consumer behavioral patterns and like marketing user journeys that we see in Web2 are now starting to become prevalent in Web3.
Great insights. I actually putting on the hat of the person who did a lot in Web 2. Well, for me, to be completely honest, the fundamental principles of Web 2 and Web 3 are quite similar. What is changing is the audience, channels, tools that you use depending on whatever objective you have. But yeah, I totally agree that there is a bigger bet on the community, as Tim already mentioned. And not in general a community. Everybody's talking about community all the time, but what I mean here is the extent of involvement and engagement of the community in each and every project is higher, of course, but there are actually two things that people don't really want or don't really like to mention in the context. First, that community is not everything. You can have your community, but you still have to build the system, and you still have to use your social media, paid ads. You need to do your PR, for example. You need to involve other communities for collaborations. You need to build this ecosystem to make it work. And if you have your community on Discord, it's not everything. And the second thing that I wanted to emphasize here is that according to the classic perception of Web3 community, it's supposed to be enthusiastic and altruistic almost enough to share the information about each and every product, but it doesn't really happen if you don't deal with World of Women, for example, or CryptoPunks, or big projects that people really initially organically want to share. You need to incentivize as well. You need to create some simple things for people to actually share, post, and distribute information of your brand. And it's not that obvious, maybe. I don't hear that a lot, for example. But yeah, moving on. Guys, what do you think? You manage big agencies like in Web3 space, and you work with different projects. For example, if the one has NFT project, what are the tools that you would recommend to pay attention to? What is working? What is not working?
So when it comes to the tools, then there is how we internally view it is that there's some tools to manage your internal community. Then there's other tools to manage and invite other communities to come into what you do. So one of the main ones that we use to often build up like a internal brand ambassador program within the project is Crew 3. And that's usually a tool that we use within the community to build up an incentive structure to, for example, if people write tweets, write threads, or create content, that we can reward them with either monetary rewards or other rewards. Then another tool that we use to invite other communities into the project's community is D-Work. And D-Work is a tool that is a little bit, they call it like a combination of Trello and Fiverr. So it's where you can put up like bounties to get other communities to support you, and the more bounties you have, and that can also work as a way to incentivize and energize your community, because when you can get other people to come in and to support with the growth, that's kind of when you can energize your current base as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot because I had a client who basically asked me to build the best tech stack for Mint. So I actually can't say everything because a couple of the details are, I think, slightly proprietary. I probably get in a bit of trouble for releasing them, but I'll run through most of it. I think, yeah, Crew 3 is exactly right. So what you're doing with that is you're taking people off Twitter and you're encouraging them to create user-generated content largely, and then rewarding them. So that creates a kind of a flywheel. It's a referral viral loop. So you get people off Twitter, they produce more content, which gets more people on who produce more content. So that generates an R rate, and it can build like an exponential growth curve. So that's super, super powerful, that kind of growth loop. But then people need to like land somewhere. So I'm a big believer in using a tool like Pre-Mint, which I think Galaxy, who are over there, are launching a version of that. And there's a version of it called Allow List that's already in the market as well. And what that lets you do is collect pre-sign-ups, which means you can start marketing the mint about 2 months before or longer and collect all of these sign-ups, right? So the problem is, like, you're doing your marketing, you're doing your PR, you're doing your Twitter growth marketing, maybe some partnerships, maybe some influencer marketing, and you're getting people onto this pre-list sign-up. But you have to actually activate them on the day. So you can use some email blasts. But I'm a big believer that paid ads are going to start becoming a much bigger part of the space. That's one of those trends of like, us kind of catching up and looking a bit more like, traditional marketing funnels that you see in Web 2. So a great company I'll shout out is called Addressable. They're based out of Tel Aviv. I was checking their CEO yesterday. And what they're doing is basically building like the best Twitter ads platform out there. So what that might look like to me is if you're collecting your custom audience of email addresses and Twitter handles, you can then carry out retargeting nudge campaigns in the lead up to the mint, which just generates more awareness. But you can also use them to just create custom audiences and try and advertise to them. I think the problem is, are you going to be able to run Twitter ads based on like whether they let you do it? And it's just like completely hit and miss. Like in the UK, they were saying you have to be FCA regulated, and I was like, okay. And then I signed like the biggest British Isles UK stablecoin, so I run the marketing for GBPT, which is regulated. And I went to Twitter and they were like, nah. And I was like, what? And then I'll just see people doing like random mints, like university students, and then their ad accounts are allowed. And I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. But look, Elon Musk just posted $2 billion less ad revenue than last year on Twitter. And that was like, I think that's like only out of like 5 billion. So they're producing like 40% less ad revenue this year. So I'd be very, very surprised if Elon doesn't just kind of open up Web3 advertising and start trying to milk that cash cow. So I think in the next 6 months we're going to see a lot more of an opportunity to run NFT ads and Twitter ads. So that's a really big space to watch. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. You mentioned a lot Twitter, and a lot of people are talking about Twitter and Discord in Web3 space. Again, I would maybe say what is working. Like everything is working depending on your target audience and the objective that you want to achieve, to be completely honest, I think so. I will give you an example of what from my working experience. We are onboarding people into Web3 space, mostly women, because women are underrepresented still in Web3 space, unfortunately. And here, we create educational materials that are as simple as, like, for my grandma to understand. In onboarding, that's why we do a lot of Instagram. That's why we do a lot of TikTok. That's why we do a lot of short videos. We do LinkedIn as a professional social media. And we also do live events because for a lot of people who are newbies, seeing is believing, and that's important. And I think, well, it really depends on your target audience and what you want to achieve, like in the end of your project. So, guys, again, talking about your experience, maybe you have some nice Web3 case or NFT case that you want to emphasize.
So I would not bring up any specific example that I worked with. But the general thing of you can see projects that are taking over the market overnight, it feels like. What they have in common is that they often start with changing the business model of what's working. And one very good example is Blur, and how they basically what it felt like overnight was change the whole landscape of NFTs. How they did it really well was that they, first of all, changed the business model and came up with a better one. So they were giving more value to the community and to the whole ecosystem in NFTs. And then afterwards, they incentivized and helped to get the key opinion leaders on board to tweet about it, because most of the key opinion leaders were the ones that were going to get part of the airdrop that they were going to offer. So what happened then was that overnight, all the leading voices in the NFT space started tweeting about it because they wanted to increase the value of their own tokens. And that kind of is the most powerful marketing campaign that you can run, when you basically change the business for the better, and then also get the incentives right to get all the right key opinion leaders on Twitter and YouTube to talk about you. And when you have those two things in place, that's kind of when you can create a marketing campaign that changes the industry for the better.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. Blur is definitely one to look at if you're looking for the perfect case study of how to come out of nowhere and just really dominate and take market share. They've done really, really well. Yeah, it's difficult sometimes as a marketing agency founder to kind of share case studies, because sometimes your clients get a bit annoyed. But I actually do have permission to share a really interesting one that I can discuss with you. So me and my co-founder are really lucky to have recently signed GBPT, which is the biggest British Isles stablecoin. So it's like the UK stablecoin. Me and my co-founder have a background in political marketing. We're political strategists who run 4 different election campaigns, but helped run. But for a while, the kind of political work and our Web3 marketing work have been separate. But that was an opportunity for us to really bring those two things together. And it didn't get off to an amazing start, because I'd speak to a lot of people and be like, yeah, you want to hold a British stable coin? They were just like, no, like I just use US dollar stable coins. So I was really trying to fight against global dollar hegemony, which is a really difficult thing to fight against. So we had to think, and I thought, like, what is the fundamental thing here? Like, what is the fundamental thing we can address? And I think it's the British audiences care about the British economy. They care about the pound. Like they don't want to see Britain getting kind of dominated and losing out to America. So I was like, right, I need to come after the Americans. Sorry, guys. So I had to think, and I thought, well, the US stablecoin market is just billions, 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 and billions, right? And I thought, if I take that against the US economy and work out the proportion between the two, and then take the UK economy and say, well, if we had the same proportionality, where would we be? And we came out of a statistic, and it was 20 billion pounds. So we coined the term unhealthy dependency, and we went out and we got front page coverage on Crypto AM, which is the biggest kind of crypto print. City AM, which is the biggest financial print newspaper in London. It's in every tube station in London. They have a section called Crypto AM. We got on the front page of that with the headline, $20 billion unhealthy dependency on US stablecoins. And then we got 7, 8, 9, 10 secondary bits of coverage as it got picked up by other newspapers. So I think for us that was a classic case study in terms of how to focus on and reposition a brand, not in terms of the copy, but in terms of the messaging, what you're delivering, how you're trying to actually connect with your audience. And then go and do some statistical research and go and actually generate a story, an angle that reframes the current macro context based around your client's product, and then lead with that as a story that generally becomes newsworthy. So that's basically the takeaway from that is think very clearly and deeply about what your client's trying to do and how people could perceive them. And then, if you're struggling to get a story, just start trying to play around with some numbers. Start trying to think okay, here's a market trend. This market's growing by this amount. And you can infer from that, this market will overtake this market by this date, right? So you could say, digital art's going to be bigger than traditional art by 2030 something, right? I've always wanted to publish that article. I haven't quite found the data on it yet, but as soon as I do, I'm 100% confident it will get a really, really good feature because that data tells a story. So yeah, if in doubt, look for data, send it to some journalists, they'll publish you, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Talking about Web3 and NFT cases that I would like to mention, also coming back a little bit to the level of newbies. because that's what I do. I want to emphasize that it is important to indeed make sure that the experience is seamless. So for example, everybody knows the Starbucks loyalty program case. Last month, they launched the bunch of NFTs that people can buy with their fiat, with just normal money. I mean, they're not supposed to do any crypto wallet or whatever. I think that's great. I mean, it's great that it's coming more and more on the market, because instead of creating absolutely alien consumer journeys for people, it is way more efficient in terms of onboarding to, let's say, catch them in their natural habitat. So for example, that's why I mentioned a lot of normal social media that we put our communication into. Like when I say normal social media, I mean Instagram or TikTok or whatever. So yeah, seamless experience is the key. And yeah, I would also like to ask you guys about the obstacles that you have in your work. So for example, maybe there are some challenges that you want to mention.
I think the biggest challenge that is happening right now is AI content is kind of flooding social media with tweets, images, videos, and content gets flooded because you can create 10 times the content at the same time as you can create 10 posts instead of one. So the biggest challenge that I see ahead is that you will have to create better content, and you will have to understand how to market it better.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so one of the biggest issues I face, and I think our clients face, is based around funding, right? So yes, we do work with some larger clients that are Series A funded, but I've really always been an early stage growth marketer. Like my passion is taking early stage businesses and kind of leveling them up to generate their first significant revenues, get their first coverage, and then do subsequent funding rounds and just kind of take them from like a product that's not out there to something that's in the market. The issue with dealing with those companies that have let's say like $1 million in funding, but not hundreds of millions, is you have to achieve results that can compete with bigger, better funded organizations on much smaller budgets. So the issue for me has been working out how to really efficiently get results, right? So not just get the results by just throwing money at a problem, but basically give my clients retainers that don't eat up their entire marketing spend, so leave some stuff for influencer or whatever else they need, right? But then are able to get results. So I think the way to do that, I've noticed, is just you have to be really, really effective at client service delivery. This is what I think people don't tell you about running an agency. It's it doesn't matter how much revenue your business is generating if you're not creating a margin. So if you're dealing with early stage companies, you need to push down the value of the retainers so they just don't burn through their money. But you need to be able to deliver on that at a lower cost. So interestingly, one of the biggest changes I made was, like a lot of agencies, we had to let a few people go when the bear market hit. And then now when we're growing a lot and we're hiring new people back. But instead of regrowing and hiring back the same number of people, what I did was actually increase the salaries of a few of my guys and increased their purview, and then hired a couple of other people at higher salary ranges than we'd been doing previously. And what I found was actually hiring much better people who are better paid, as opposed to having a larger but slightly cheaper team, was delivering way more results. So that seems like a really weird and niche thing to say, but it's basically that one person earning $60,000 is worth a hell of a lot more than two people earning $25,000 or $30,000. That's not a general trend. It's just something I found basically. So that's enabled us to actually deliver a lot greater amount of value, because I've got some guys in the organization who can just do actually astounding work, stuff that I just couldn't do myself, to be honest.
Thank you so much. That was a really great chat. Thank you, guys. Our time is up. Thank you so much for everyone for coming here and listening to us. Have fun at NFT.NYC.